Hi everyone, I hope you're all having a great week. Well, this is the week that I'm finally going to show you what I do with my paper towels that I save. I think I've mentioned on a couple of occasions at least that when I'm painting I use paper towels, and instead of putting all of the paint from my brush in my water so that it doesn't go down the drain, I only dip my paintbrush in the water and then I wipe most of the paint off on my paper towels. And I think it's a really great idea because it prevents a lot of paint particles from going into our water supply, and I think it's just overall better for the environment. So these paper towels that I save, and you'll see I have quite a few of them saved up, I can then use to create some backgrounds for my paintings. And I've done this on a number of occasions with acrylic paints, and I have done it before using watercolors for neurographic art. I've never shown this process on YouTube before, but I've been promising that I would do it because I think it's a neat idea, and it's a great way for us to reuse the paint that is basically left over on our brushes. And as you can see, it really does create some pretty neat and interesting effects on the paper. I find them really cool. My niece Patricia is also was painting with me one day, and we were wiping our brushes on our paper towel, and I at that point had not really started saving my paper towels, but she said, oh my goodness, they're so pretty, the paper towels that we were brushing that we were swiping our brushes on and cleaning our brushes on. And she said, I don't want to throw it out. And I was like, well, yeah, why are we throwing that out? It makes no sense. And then I saw that another artist was doing the same thing, and I thought, you know what, it's time for me to get on the bandwagon with this as well. So as you can see, I've got a ton of them. They're all different colors because I not only paint using watercolors, but I also paint a lot with acrylics, and I don't typically show that very much here on YouTube. But today we're going to be working with that, or I'm going to be working with this. I would invite you to, if you have some paper towels of your own that you would like to put to some good use, to join me. I would really love for you to paint with me. On top of using the watercolors, and I really love this one, this might actually be the one that I end up choosing because, well, that one's really pretty too. Anyway, I'll figure it out and then I'll get going. The other thing we're gonna need is something to put our paper towels on. I've got a few different options for you here. I have done it before on watercolor paper, and since you're going to be covering most of the paper up, I wouldn't recommend going with any expensive watercolor paper for this type of work. So my Canson paper usually is pretty good for that. I tend to buy my paper pads, all the paper I buy, I buy it in bigger sizes, and then I cut it down to the size I want. And so I've got a really large piece of paper here. I'm going to cut it down to size. I don't want to work on something that big. But watercolor paper is good for this. Mixed media paper is good for this kind of application. Again, for this type of thing, I would cut it down to size. I also have these little, they're called painting boards, and they're inexpensive and really great to use if you're wanting to practice and create a number of different little paintings quickly. This is a really good thing to use, especially if it's not something you necessarily intend to sell, or even if it was something you intended to sell. It's very inexpensive to buy these painting boards, and they usually come in a pack of at least 5. So this is another good surface to work on. The thing about the mixed media paper and the watercolor paper is that they are a bit thicker than normal paper, but it will, once your paper towel dries on it, it will tend to bow a little bit, which I think can be corrected by either ironing it and then stacking some books on top of it. But it might be better to work with something more solid. So this is a little bit thicker. I don't know if you can see here, but it's a little thicker. It may still bow anyway. We'll see. What I'm gonna choose to work on today is a little piece of cradle board like this, because this will not work. This is framed on the underside and solid on the top, which I think is really great to work with. Because I have matte super gel medium on hand, I'm going to use that to glue my paper towel to the board. But you could also use a fluid matte medium. A lot of different products that you would have on hand may work quite well for this application. The best way to figure out if something will work or not is always to give it a try. Now I'm ready to apply my paper towel to my board, and I'm not going to worry about making it right in line with the edges of the board. I'm just going to stick it on the board how I want to, basically using the colors that I want in the painting, the painted paper towels. And once I'm done covering this and have let it dry, I can just cut around the borders and I can save those pieces of paper towel for other collage work or other types of paintings. Now, one thing that you'll probably notice with your paper towels is that they usually are like a 2-ply, and so as I was gluing this paper towel onto my board, I noticed that the top layer of the paper towel was lifting and it wasn't going to stick. So I just simply removed it, and that just means that I'm going to have even more paper towel to use for background. So that's a wonderful thing. Once the matte medium had completely dried and my paper towel was fully adhered to my board, I used a utility knife to cut part of the paper towel off. It worked relatively well, but there were, it couldn't get too close to the board, and so I still had to use my fingers to rip some of the paper off the board, which wasn't really a problem because, again, the paper towel was well adhered to the board, and it was good to go by the time I had to remove some of those little edges. So not only did I do that board, but I also worked on other boards as well. This one here is an example of one I glued on to watercolor paper with gesso. So that's all I used, and it worked quite well. And I'm also very happy to see that it didn't warp. On this one, I used some fluid matte medium and I glued my paper towels to a painting board. And finally, I glued some more paper towel to another cradle board that I had previously gessoed, and I really like this one. I'm really excited to, actually, I'm really excited to work on all of them. So it's kind of neat that I have them all ready to go. The colors on this piece of paper towel that I'm now using as my background for my painting are reminiscent of an abstract floral for me. So I've decided that I'm going to go with that theme, and I'm going to work on intensifying the colors and adding more of that magenta and some orange in the painting as well, in order to continue making that theme emerge. Paper towel, of course, is not exactly like watercolor paper, but it is very porous, and I love how I can apply my watercolors to it and it will sort of spread onto the paper towel and create really neat effects. I haven't yet tried working with salt, using this, like the paper towels as a background, but that's something I definitely like to explore as well. For the top part of my painting, I've decided to mix a bit of French ultramarine with some gesso, just a tiny amount of gesso to lighten the color and make it a little bit less intense. And I'm going to go in and do a little wash over the top part of my painting. The painting is already looking really pretty to me, and I really love how the flowers are abstract, and I think they look really beautiful all on their own. But I want to take it a step further and make it an abstract floral in my style. I really like where the bottom portion of my painting is heading. And now I want to start focusing on the top part of my painting, which is my abstract sky. I'm not really 100% sure, even at this point, what it is I'm going to do exactly. I have some ideas sort of bouncing in my head. I may try some and then decide that I want to change things. I really am just going to work my way through this process and see as I go along what it is I feel like doing. But for now, since I'm not 100% sure what to do with this portion of the painting, I'm coming in with my fine tip pen and I'm just adding some vertical lines on the top part of the painting. Those vertical lines, if I wanted them to be, could very well represent rain, or it could just be a way of making the background even more interesting. In this little palette of metallic paints by CSY, I have watched CSI. I don't know why my brain went there, but anyway, CSY Art Gallery. I have two colors that I think will look really nice in this painting. One of them is Indian Orange, and that's the one I'm applying right now. The other one I also like from this palette that I think will look really nice in this painting is called Shiny Crystal Pink. And so this painting is kind of whimsical and a really light-hearted take on an abstract floral, and so I thought these two colors would add more whimsy and a little bit of shimmer and really help make this painting come alive. So I'm super excited to be working with them. While I let the bottom part of my painting dry, I'm going to start working on the idea of creating some clouds. I'm not 100% sure of this. I have created these whimsical clouds in other paintings before and actually really love them. But I'm not sure it's the right way to go for this painting. So I'm first drawing them in with just a white pencil, and I will try to add some color to it and see how I feel as I go along. But even now, just adding these lines, I don't know if I'm feeling it. So I'm just going to keep doing it and see if things change and my intuition feels better about them as I go along. And if I don't, there's always ways that I can fix it. I like the top part of my painting right now. I don't love the top part of my painting right now. What I do, however, love is the addition of this blue. This midnight blue is really nice, and I think it's going to look really great in my painting, but I want to see it on the bottom portion of my painting. And I think what I'm going to do is actually use a wet brush to sort of brush it into the background of the top portion of my painting. But first things first, I'm going to work on my flowers, and then I'll decide once I'm done working on my flowers if I want to keep the abstract whimsical clouds or if I want to do away with them. Yes, this blue absolutely deserves a little spot in my painting, and I'm so happy I added it to my flowers. I'm still feeling my way through this painting process, and I can't quite yet decide what to do with the top portion of my painting. I like the blue. I sort of like the other color as well, but I don't know, I'm not feeling the shapes. And so I think what I'll ultimately do is brush them away with a clean brush and some water. But since I'm not 100% sure just yet what exactly I want to do, I'm gonna keep painting and adding the details that I feel will actually help this painting become more alive. And adding this 24 karat Merc gold is just the thing I think to bring this painting to another level. You'll notice that I'm painting it over some vertical lines that I had created earlier. And I actually am liking this better. The lines look nice, but they were very faint and not very easy to see. This gold is actually helping this little flower, this little abstract flower, pop a little bit more. So I like it better, and for that reason, I'm not feeling overly disappointed that I'm painting over my vertical lines. Okay, decision made. I am definitely going to brush these little squiggly clouds out of my painting. And the neat thing about having used an iridescent paint here is that some of that shimmery paint will still be on my painting, and I like that. But I want to do away with those shapes. I'm not really feeling the shapes. Doing a wash of water over this area will help to spread some of that paint and do away with the shapes for the most part. They'll still be faintly in the background, and that's okay. I don't mind that too much, but I do want to get rid of the shapes for the most part and just keep some of that shimmery color. Now that the clouds are pretty much gone, I've decided that I love the gold in the bottom part of the painting so much that I am going to add a sun on the top part of my painting. So half a sun really. I measured to the middle of my cradle board, and I'm drawing using my compass. I'm drawing some arcs, and I'm gonna add a sunshine on top of my painting. Yes, this sunshine is exactly what my little abstract flowers needed. But because I love that blue in the bottom portion of the painting so much, I think it will add a little something to my sky if I add it to the arcs of the sun as well. It may seem strange for me to want to do that, but I think it'll balance out the painting quite well. And this is an abstract painting. It's meant to be whimsical and fun. It's not meant to represent, the sun we actually see in our sky, as I'm sure you're well aware. So I'm not overly concerned about it. It's just going to accentuate the blue that's in the background, and I think it's going to help make that sun pop a little bit more. I've pulled out my fountain pen and I'm going to add a little bit of stippling to my sun just for more contrast, and then I think I'll be ready to call this painting done. The painting itself is complete, but I still have that wooden frame all around the painting, and I don't want to leave it as is. I would prefer to finish the side, so I've taken out some Prussian blue acrylic paint and I'm just going to paint the sides. I'm going to be careful not to get any paint on the top portion of my painting, of course, and then once this is done, it will truly feel like my painting is complete. Painting the sides of a substrate on a painting really does give it more of a finished look, and I'm glad that I did that. This little painting has a lot of shimmer to it, really beautiful bright colors, and I really love how it turned out. It's fun when you can turn something that would have otherwise gone into the garbage bin into something really beautiful. And that's what we artists do. We can make what some people consider to be trash turn into a treasure. The possibilities for creating art using our painted paper towels are truly endless. and I really hope you're feeling inspired to do the same. Is this something you can see yourself doing? I'd love to hear how you're feeling inspired to use your painted paper towels. Thank you again for making the time to join me on my creative journey. I hope you have a wonderful week and happy creating!